गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। सच्चिदानन्दरूपाय विश्वोत्पत्त्यादिहेतवे तापत्रयविनाशाय श्रीकृष्णाय वयं नमः। श्रीकृष्णाय वयं नमः। ॐ योऽन्तः प्रविश्य मम वाचमिमां प्रसुप्तां सञ्जीवयत्यखिलशक्तिधरस्वधाम्ना अन्याश्च हस्तचरणश्रवणत्वगादीन् प्राणान्नमो भगवते पुरुषाय तुभ्यं। प्राणान्नमो भगवते पुरुषाय तुभ्यं। प्राणान्नमो भगवते तुभ्यं। We are in chapter 3, section 3, sutra number 43. Till 42 we saw in the last, how many? 1, 2, 3, 4 verses. What is the importance of satsang? And now what are the dangers of dussanga that are being enumerated? Sutra 43 says, Dussanga sarvathaiva tyajyaha. Dussanga sarvathaiva tyajyaha. Evil company is only fit to be renounced by all means. So one is the positive, wherein we cultivate, we maintain company of the good, company of the truth, company of like-minded people who are pursuing spirituality and keen to cultivate good values, good moral values, ethical values, etc., etc., by generating which in their life automatically it concludes in remembering the God, and as a result of that continuous remembrance of the God, there is vasana exhaustion and eventually abidance in the divine himself. On the contrary, if we choose evil company, and what is this evil company? Evil company is that in the company of whom our vasanas increase, our purpose of life, our natural inclination in life is to exhaust the vasanas. That's what mind is doing, continuously pouring out whatever is hidden in its womb. That is the vasanas. And when we are on the spiritual path, that is possible. Whereas when we keep the company of the bad, of the evil, these vasanas keep on increasing, and this evil company propels us into a life of self-gratification, of attachment, and makes us live at the animal level, at the level of body and the world, the sense objects and beings. And as a result of that, there is total dissipation of all our energies, both at the physical level and the mental level. All the vitalities and energies get dissipated. And therefore, how can such a person who has whose all his energies have been dissipated, ever even imagine to think and stay steady on the thought of the divine? It's not possible. But at the same time, it said that the divine is divine is everywhere. The Lord is everywhere. He is expressing through good as well as the bad. So we must worship the bad. No. You must only worship the good. No, but we must see the Lord in the evil people also. Yes, you must see the Lord in the evil. And there the expression, the relationship that you must have with the evil people is that of indifference. In Bhagavad it comes, it says, with the elders you must respect and revere, with the contemporaries you remain friendly, with those who are younger to you, you must you must be forgiving and forget their faults, and with the evil people you must remain indifferent. This is how your attitude should be. Love does not mean that you keep hugging and kissing, and that is, if a saint does that, it's okay. You are not there yet. Till then, protect yourself, and protect yourself from being in the bad company. And human beings are created, come into this creation only for one purpose, and that purpose is God realization. But somewhere short circuit has taken place. You know, short circuit? Short circuit has taken place. And because of that short circuit, that person who is essentially divine starts expressing as evil. Some misadjustment is there within his body, mind, intellect. Somewhere something is going wrong. And that wrong is too much obsession with the outside world, where all his ideas, all his thoughts, all his emotions, all his actions are only for procuring, gaining and maintaining the outside world. And in this way, Narad Muniji says, we must always give up the bad company. Never. Also, why we should give up the bad company? In Sutra 44, he says, Kama Krodha Moha Smriti Bhransha Buddhi Nasha Sarvanasha Karanatvat. No tune. Kama Krodha Moha Smriti Bhransha Buddhi Nasha Sarvanasha Karanatvat Kama Krodha Moha Smriti Bhransha Buddhi Nasha Sarvanasha Karanatvat. For it is the cause for creating lust, anger, delusion, loss of memory, loss of discrimination, and ultimately our utter ruin. This is the same verse, same idea which is there given in the Bhagavad Gita. So there it is told that if you get attached, that attachment leads to anger. Exactly the same thing here. If you get attached to whom? Attached to evil company. Evil company means those people who are unethical, immoral. Meaning all thoughts, if at an internal level, all thoughts that are other than the divine thought is evil company. Then what happens? Anything other than Lord will be an objective thought. There will be some object in the world. Once we stay in that company, automatically a desire, the attachment for that company is there. attachment to that, towards that object is there. Then when the attachment to that object is there, the feeling of desire for that object is there. The object or person. When that desire is not fulfilled, there is anger. Anyone who comes in your gratification of that desire, immediately anger comes. And when anger reaches, when it becomes extreme, there is, the next word is krodha moha. The mind becomes deluded. And in that delusion, what is this delusion? That he stops remembering things. And that is the next one. As a result of delusion, smriti bhransha. Smriti bhransha means he starts forgetting his past memories. Because what is our wisdom as an individual at this moment? What is our wisdom? Our wisdom is equal to all the learnings that we have had through our experiences in the past, isn't it? That fire is hot, don't touch it. Electricity is dangerous, don't touch it. Don't walk in front of the moving traffic, etc., etc. If you stand in the sun outside, you will get sunburned. If you overeat, you will have a stomach ache. All this we have experimented, and therefore this wisdom comes out of us. But this fellow, he has forgotten as a result of that anger, and because that anger produces this delusion, this wailing over his mind, that he forgets that before also he has been angry and it has not led to a healthy result, but he is unable to bring that wisdom into the forefront, and because he forgets his entire past, all the experiences that he has had, and as a result of his forgetfulness of his past memory, he is not able to make a decision what is right and what is wrong in his life. A very, very angry person is not able to make out, is that anger going to hurt him? Some people even die of heart attack in that anger, isn't it? Because that anger, the blood goes into their head. They have a stroke or something happens, or they get paralyzed. Extreme anger. And when a person is not able to discriminate between what is right and what is wrong, that itself is the fall of man. He has reached the rock bottom. Very difficult for him to come up. Only by his grace. And in this way, Narad Muni ji, or Narad Muni must have been before Mahabharata, before Krishna was there. But exactly, Kama, Krodha, Krodha, Esha, same mantra is there. And the same thought is, so which means the philosophy that is being propagated, the sequence of fall, in Bhagavad Gita chapter 12, this sequence is there, how a man falls. In 18th chapter, the sequence of rise is given. So here, in this sequence of fall is exactly the same as Bhagavad Gita chapter 2. And in this way, the initial reason why a person falls is always the wrong company, and therefore protect yourself. After satsang, after your japa, after your sadhana, after your meditation, after you have done your prayers in front of the Lord, in those special moments where your mind is absolutely calm, don't straight away go and put the TV on and watch a horror movie. Gone. That will go in. Because mind is already calm, it's very receptive at that moment. At that time, chant the name of the Lord. Remain in silence somewhere. Go and sit on the toilet seat. Best. The most peaceful place in the house. And this way, the initial cause again is the constant obsession with the objects of the world, constant obsession with the constant company with the evil-minded people, etc. And evil-minded people, meaning material-oriented people, their purpose is only one, and that is sense gratification, not heart gratification through remembrance of the Lord. It's instant gratification. How can I satisfy myself by getting involved in the world? Because it's easy. This way, the Narad Muniji is continuously hammering on us that maintain good company under all sets of circumstances in your life. Even by mistake, you can go into a jail and try to change the prisoners into good and teach them yoga. But while teaching yoga, I'm sure they will also teach you how to steal, how to murder, how to abuse. It's the perfect training ground. So don't have these feelings that I'm here to save the world. The Lord has given me this idea. He has given me the ability, the gift of the gab. A little bit I am able to speak. So let me go. Someone told me, Swamiji, will you like to go to Broome? Broome? Above Perth? Broome. I said, for what? They said, no, there all these refugees are there and we need a Hindu person to go there and give satsang to them. I said, why me? Why don't you go? No, they'll pay, the government will pay for your flight, they will pay for your accommodation and you have to do satsang. I said, I don't speak Tamil. Nowadays lot of Sri Lankans are coming now. I don't speak Tamil. No, they will understand English. I said, they want to get into the country and I am going to go and tell them about how to calm their mind. They'll make me into an agent. Anyway, let's see what happens. Verse Sutra number 45. See, तरंगायिता अपि मे संगात् समुद्रायन्ति तरंगायिता अपि मे संगात् समुद्रायन्ति. Though appearing as a ripple in the beginning, these various tendencies like anger, lust, greed, jealousy, etc., by evil companionship can become an ocean. Not ocean, a tidal wave. Not a tidal wave, a tsunami. Initially, when a tsunami begins, it is very destructive, but when it begins, it's just a slight ripple on the surface of the ocean. But underneath it is gaining great momentum, and by the time it reaches the shores of any city, it has gained a humongous form and has the power to destroy the entire town, which we have all experienced, isn't it? On the TV at least, if we were not there ourselves physically. Same way, these negative tendencies that are there, this evil company that is there, this sense gratification that is there within us. Initially it sounds, there is nothing wrong in watching a bad movie, there is nothing wrong in having a company of that fellow, it's okay, he needs that, nobody understands him, let me be there with that person. But slowly in that person may get better or not, that we don't know. But you certainly will start exhibiting negative qualities. Initially it looks okay. Initially the anger, it's very, thoda sa gussa aa gaya, okay. Jealousy is there, it's okay. Envy is there, okay. But if left unchecked, slowly it takes a humongous form and destroys you as a person. So also lust, initially looking at a opposite sex, looking at other things, looking at those movies, it's all very harmless thing. But deep inside, the momentum is increasing. Outside it seems it's okay. Nobody is watching me. If I corner of the eye I can see. If nobody is there I can watch that type of movies. But inside your heart, the turmoil is increasing. And one day that sannyasi falls for someone and gets married. We see these cases from where? From Bangalore only. Bangalore only these cases come. 2 cases now in last 10 years.
Don't look at me that way.
Huh?
Please don't look at me that way.
I didn't look at you, I looked at Bangalore. Huh? So it's very, and therefore in certain, like Swami Narayan Pant and all, you are not even allowed to touch women. You are not allowed to touch the food prepared by them. Very, very strict, over strict, but it's all here. The more you superficially keep them away, that also is a problem. Because the desire has not gone. So you have to work it out. And the only way to work it out is surrender your mind to the Lord. Keep your mind in the good company again and again. See, one person was there, my friend only, in Newcastle. First time I went to him, from nursery we studied together. So you saw, Acha, Swami ban gaya hai. Acha, yeah, you have become a Swami. What is sannyasi? He knows, but just pulling my leg, teasing me this way. I said, okay man, listen, it's okay. He's purposely calling me by my old name. I said, you do whatever you want. Eventually, once he called me and I was sitting there and he said, Bhaiya, you are sannyasi, it's okay, but I need a drink every night. So I'm going to have a scotch. I said, as long as you don't force me, you drink. So he drank. One year he drank, second year he drank, third year, you know what happened? There are other people in that area who are also good company. And another sannyasi came because I am too close to him. He won't listen to me in that sense. Because unless respect is not gained, how will that person listen? He thinks I am still his friend. Yes, I am. Therefore, I can't impose anything on him. So that Swami came. And that Swami was in his house from Swami Narayan. And this Sardarji, he went to his house. Because out of respect, he said, please come. He said, after work I will come. The moment he entered, that Swamiji, he was asking everyone, what are you going to leave? What are you going to leave? What are you going to drop? What are you going to drop? Suddenly Sardarji came inside the house. He said, what are you going to drop? He says, what am I going to drop? There is nothing to drop. He says, no, sit down. This is what is going on. And because it's a very holy day, we are asking everyone, what are they going to leave? Something that is very dear to them. He says, I will drop my wife. Jokingly he said, the wife was there. Hey, Sardarji. So then he started seriously thinking. He said, Socho, by the time we finish with everyone, till then you think what you want to drop. And he kept thinking. And when his turn came again, he said, yes, I found what I want to drop. He dropped drinking from that day. That was about 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Till today he has not touched alcohol. See? It was only possible in that sort of company. If you go to a pub and tell him, hey, drop, what are you going to drop today? After he has had 2 or 3 pegs. Those cigarette smokers, they are smoking. And that time you say, hey, you need to drop, man. Yeah, I will drop. I am waiting for an auspicious day to drop the smoking cigarette. And he is smoking and coughing away. When we are in the good company, the thoughts automatically become positive. Renunciation automatically sets in. You want to become a better person in good company. In evil company, automatically you go downwards, whether you like it or not. And therefore protect yourself. And therefore here it is told that just as a small spark in the forest can become into a huge forest fire and destroy towns. Similarly, this one spark of bad thought, of a small spark of sense gratification can become a raging fire and destroy your mental peace completely. So beware. Stay vigilant and alert with what company you are keeping. And this way, to this disease of bad company, satsang is the only medicine, it is the antidote. And this way, one must remain alert and vigilant, not to fall prey to the influences of evil-minded people, and also shun their association as much as possible. Sometimes it is not possible, but mentally detach from them. Don't be a soothsayer. If everyone thinks like this, who will help the bad people? If this thought is coming in your head, first make yourself to be able. Like Eknath Maharaj, yesterday I told you that story that for 200 rupees he was going and troubling Eknath Maharaj in the room. Eknath Maharaj did not get disturbed. In the end, what happened? That evil-minded fellow turned around, isn't it? Because Eknath Maharaj had the capacity to withstand the onslaught of this evil-minded fellow. Do you have? If I turn the fan away from you, if I turn the fan away from you, how long will you stay quiet? Immediately. Swamiji, we are also feeling hot, please turn it towards us. Huh? No, that was an indication.
That fan is steady. That fan is steady. It should be moving.
It's okay, it doesn't matter to me. So in this way, now the next section, chapter 4, don't get disturbed by what others are saying. Concentrate on this. Next topic is, who crosses Maya? Who crosses Maya? So now that topic is over, and the next year it is told in 46th Sutra. Now again, the greatness of satsang, the greatness of the Lord, that the supreme love for the Lord alone can take you across. That is being told, and here it is told in the 46th Sutra. Kastarati kastarati mayam yas sangam tyajati yo mahanubhavam sevate nirmamo bhavati kastarati kastarati mayam yah sangam tyajati yo mahanubhavam sevate nirmamo bhavati nirmamo bhavati. Who crosses Maya? Who really crosses Maya? He who gives up all attachment to sense objects. Second, he who serves the great devotees. And third, he who renounces all sense of possession in himself alone has the capacity to cross the Maya. It goes on actually, it doesn't stop there. Then there are, how many points are given? Ah, 12 points are given. 12 ways are given how a person can develop devotion towards the Lord. Because in the end, the Savior is only one. the devotion, the love for the Lord. That alone can save us. So, in the last 8 sutras, we saw how this sage Narada brought about those conditions which will bring the seeker to the supreme devotion. And the satsang and shanda, dussang, etc., etc. And now, from this, we are in the 46th verse. From 46th to the 50th verse, he shows that love alone leads to liberation, and how to cultivate this love. Some pointers are given, and only this love, as it increases in intensity, it is able to pierce through the veil of Maya. Veil of Maya, the veil of ignorance. What is the expression of this ignorance? Fear, kama, and karma. According to the scriptures, ignorance expresses. Ignorance is the root, and its tentacles are desire and action. Ignorance makes us get attached to something, eventually makes us desire that something other than the Lord, and then it makes us act in order to procure that which is other than the Lord, and we lose the whole plot. And this way, Naradji says that it is the love alone which ultimately leads us to liberation, and therefore it is told to us that Maya is very difficult to cross. It is very difficult to go beyond the Maya. How can we cross it and get real devotion and the fulfillment of it? Can anybody cross the Maya? Is it possible for me to cross the Maya? We are a product of Maya. We are not product of the Lord. Lord is infinite. Everything is water. The product of Maya is the wave. Because even though it is water, we are calling it by another name. We are infinitely that same, not other than that divine reality, but out of some delusion, we are calling ourselves an individual. What is that which is making us feel that we are an individual, that we have a beginning and an end, that we have to seek the Lord, that we are caught up somewhere, that we are, someone needs to help us out, that we need to study the scriptures to come out of this ignorance that we are steeped in? How? And here it is told that that the only way it is possible is Yah Sangam Tyajati. The first question was Kastarati Mayam. Who is able to cross the Maya? Is it possible to cross the Maya? The answer is Yah Sangam Tyajati. He who renounces all attachment. Sangam, attachment, company. Giving importance to anything other than the Lord is attachment. Attachment to Lord is not attachment, it is devotion. See, attachment to everything else. I am devoted to my husband. That you are not devoted to husband. If you are devoted to husband, you would have sacrificed your whole life for the husband. In Eknath Maharaj's story comes that Eknath Maharaj is doing Shraddha for his ancestors, and his wife is cooking food. A huge, sumptuous meal is prepared, and all the Brahmins of the village, they are waiting. Today we are going to get a sumptuous meal, and everyone is waiting. And at that time, one Shudra is passing by, and he smells the food. Very nice, but I think we will not get it because it is for the Brahmins, and Eknathji Maharaj himself is a Brahmin, and he has invited all the Brahmins for after the puja of the ancestors, he has to feed the Brahmins. So I don't think we will get it. And Eknath Maharaj is sitting in his courtyard and he hears that conversation between these two Shudras. Immediately he calls him, "Hey, come here. What did you say? You are hungry? You like the food?" He says, "Come, call everyone. All people from your community." And all that food which was prepared, he asked his, "My dear darling wife," she says, "Yes." what is it now? He says, whatever you have cooked, we are going to feed these untouchables. And after that, according to the scriptural injunction, we'll both again take shower and clean this whole area with fresh cow dung, and then you prepare the food all over again for the Brahmins. She says, your word is my command. Because whatever you say, have I ever said no? He says, that is true, you never say no. And they feed all the untouchables, and then afterwards, again, after shower and the cow dung, new floor is created instantly by putting the cow dung. That is how they used to do it in the olden times. And then she prepares fresh food, and Eknath Maharaj goes to all the Brahmins and he says, "Are, please come for the, what do you call, come for the dinner, lunch, Brahman Bhojan." They said, "Brahman Bhojan? You go, before Brahmins you feed the untouchables. And now you, with which face, with what face have you come to us that I want to..." None of one single Brahmin from the whole village goes to Eknath's house. And Eknath Maharaj is very, now what to do? But at that time, Lord himself was working as a servant in Eknath Maharaj's house. Sharangadhar. He is himself working. He sees the insult of his Lord, because for him, he is a servant. The master is getting insulted. The Brahmins are not coming. He holds the hand of the Eknath Maharaj. He says, if these don't, suddenly he doesn't tell who he is, but he says, "Come with me." If they don't come, what happens? What is the matter? Because they were feeling good. Now Eknath Maharaj will not be able to feed his ancestors. He says, "I will make sure that you feed the ancestors. Your ancestors will come down and eat the food themselves." And he goes with him, goes home, brings all the food, goes into the temple, and lo behold, all his ancestors come down, and in their form, he is feeding them. And all these Brahmins are watching from the doorway of the temple. "Arey, ab to khana bhi gaya, dakshina bhi gayi." So, one spark, someone must have said, "This is bad, this is bad." Another point, see how good company, bad company. Eknath Maharaj was a realized saint when this is happening. And this untouchable, he feels so blessed that the Eknath Maharaj, in his eyes, everyone is equal. He is not seeing himself as Brahmin but for societal sake, you carry on your activities. So that untouchable says, "Please come to my house for food." He says, "Of course I will come." And these troublemakers, they are waiting outside the compound. They hear, what? Eknath Maharaj promised to go to this untouchable house. A Brahmin promised to go to an untouchable house. How is that possible? We'll throw him out of our community. We'll excommunicate him. And they are waiting. And they watch. And they keep watching, and eventually when the evening time comes, Eknath Maharaj leaves his house. They are all following from tree to tree to tree. He goes into the house of that untouchable and he sits down and eats. And while they are watching, someone comes running, another Brahmin. He says, let's go and wait at his house. And the moment he comes back, we will excommunicate him here and there, here and now." And they go back to his house. They find there also Eknath Maharaj is taking Veda class. Now they are confused. So they run back to this untouchable house. They see he is eating food there. How can he go faster than us? So half go there and half go here. And they find both the places Eknath Maharaj is there. To protect his devotees, the Lord takes the form. Eknath Maharaj had given his word to that untouchable. But so that he does not get into trouble, Lord took the form of his devotee and he was there at the house. And they were nonplussed, all the Brahmins. There, like this, there are many, many, many stories about all the saints and sages. So, yah sangam tejati. So, because Brahmins are behaving like this, Eknath being a Brahmin, does he say that, Acha, you are all saying like this, I will also behave like that? No, he sticks to his rules. And his rule is that everyone is equal in the eyes of the Lord. No casteism. So here he says, he who renounces all attachment to the world of objects, and our mind is continuously moving out of the senses to catch the world, to hold on to the world, to clutch the world. When you have to change the gear, I don't know if you know, manual cars have a gear and a accelerator, isn't it? Accelerator, one leg is there, the other left leg, brake and clutch, brake and clutch. So if you want to go from first gear to second gear, you have to press the clutch. You have to undo the clutch so that you can change into the second gear and again release the clutch so it locks in, isn't it? Our mind is continuously clutched into the world. You have to unclutch it. You have to disentangle from the world. And that is renouncing, that is giving up the attachment. And this habit of continuously attaching, and as a result of that attachment, desires, the result of desire is, no, desires get satisfied, no, try. Simple, you start eating, you like chocolate mousse. And today she was trying, you made chocolate pudding. And little bit was left. So she said, no, how was the chocolate pudding? Very nice. Have one more. No, I am very full. No, have one more. You just now said you liked it. No, it was nice. No, then have one more. After, if she says 2, 3, 4 times and you are thinking, I liked it, but I did not like it that much. Slowly your voice will go up. Anger will come out. See? So, whenever we get attached to something and start seeing that this world is able to give us any satisfaction, it is a wrong conclusion. It is not possible. It will eventually lead to anger, anger will lead to delusion, delusion will lead to loss of memory will lead to lack of discrimination, and where there is lack of discrimination, wherein you do not know what is right and wrong, it is the fall of man. Man has become an animal. Even animals are better than man that time, at that stage, because at least they know what to eat, what not to eat, how to behave when and how not to behave when, isn't it? It's naturally they have it within them. But man becomes worse than animals. And in this way, the joy that individual feels, this sense of gratification that an individual feels in the objects which he wants, which he desires, that sense of gratification is not in the object. That same object, we told the example before, the child finds that he will get satisfied by getting a toy, but father and mother are unconcerned. Then they go further, there is a sari shop. The wife feels gratified that let's go into the shop. The husband and the son, they continue walking. Then the next shop, their tie is hanging. The husband wants to go into the shop, but the wife and the son, they continue walking. Eventually they all come without anything. See? So where is the gratification? Where is this sense of gratification? Is it in the object of the world? Is it in the person with whom you are having a relationship? Or is it only in your mind, in your value giving? So recognize this, that it is only to the intensity with which you have attachment to a particular object of the world or a being, to that extent that object or that being will give you some gratification, emotional gratification, etc. But not for long, only temporarily. Eventually it leads to desire, anger, etc. Expectation, anger, etc. That same what was told in the previous verse. And in this way, the more we keep holding on to the world, and the more we keep the gear in place, and that gear is that the world can satisfy my needs, the world can satisfy my desires. It is necessary to have objects of the world, it is necessary to have relationships in the world, it is necessary that I must get involved in the world, it is necessary, what will the other people think if I don't do this or that. All that, as long as it's there, you are going to get exhausted, and eventually the same people will go, "Arey gaya abhi, let him get cremated." The answer is not in the world. The answer is only with the Lord. Solution is only with the Lord Divine, in the proper company. Yas sangam tejati, yo mahanubhavam sevate. So first is, the first way of cultivating devotion was told is drop attachment to the world. Second avenue is being told to us, that serve the devotees of the Lord, serve the realized masters. And how do you serve the realized masters? How do you serve your guru? Do you serve like that person whose story I told you on the first day? That Udiya Baba, that says the sevak, so-called sevak, who was pressing his leg when he found that this leg of the guru is the problem, meaning the guru is the problem, and he picked up the axe and cut open the head. Is this how you do the seva of the Lord? Serve the Lord or the teacher? What is the service of the Lord? To follow his teachings, to find out what is the space from where he is functioning, so that we are able to access that from where he is functioning. Where is he functioning from? Is he functioning from the mind? Is he functioning from the consciousness? Is he functioning from the heart? Yes. So we must, by being in his company, we listen to his words, we listen to his instructions, and we try to imbibe those instructions in our own heart and mind, so that a point comes before the Uttam Adhikari, the best student is he, the best disciple is he. Before the teacher opens his mouth, he knows what is the thought that is going to be expressed by the teacher. Before he demands anything, the student has already provided that for the teacher. That is Uttam Adhikari. Who is a Madhyam Adhikari? Who is very inspired to serve the teacher, but that inspiration is very temporary. Any distraction along the way, he gets distracted and the teacher keeps screaming, "Arey yaar, I asked you for a glass of water, where is it? It's already half an hour." Yes, I will do it. Some people are like that. They ask questions. Swamiji, we have asked questions with so much deep dedication. You say, really man, this must be very sincere fellow. They ask the question, and the moment you start answering, "Arey, don't forget the dinner, huh? Don't do this, huh? Swamiji, just one moment, there is a phone coming." So, you started off with the right attitude, but can't stay in that, there is no steadiness. So, real, yo mahanubhavam sevate. Sevate means serve. Mahanubhavam is those great people, those great teachers, those realized masters. We must try to understand their words and their ideas. It is and reflect, do mananam on them, and do our best, strive our best in order to inculcate those ideas and teachings in our own life to the best of our ability. That best of our ability does not mean that I did so much, I can't do anymore. No, we must continue to strive. You never say to yourself, "Yaar, sleep is not coming. I give up on sleep." You keep trying, even if sleep is not coming, isn't it? You turn this way, you turn that way, you turn the light off, you turn the light on, you dim the light, you drink a glass of milk, you drink a glass of water, keep doing something in order to, but you don't forget the sleep because you want to get to it. You want to be enveloped by it. So to the best of our ability does not mean that we just try a little bit and say, I tried but it does not work. Try, keep trying. Till you die, we must keep trying. And when we do this, then that Guru Maharaj, then that great master is happy with our service. Physical service is not what the master wants. He is very, very happy when he sees one person who has taken those teachings, what they have said, and put it into practice in their life. That is important. And in this way, I have said it in previous satsangs when I am with Swamiji, at that time, my continuous attention is, yes, I am serving him, taking care of his everything, but all the time when I go for the walks, when I see him talking to other people, giving lectures, etc., my attention is only one. What is that space from where he is functioning? So, effortlessly everything happens. Effortlessly, the words come out. Effortlessly, he is absolutely at calm, at the same time witty, at the same time so deep in his understanding and knowledge of everything. What is that space? When we try to get into that space, you cannot get into the space, खोपड़ी खोलो और घुसो, ऐसे नहीं. You try to, space is the same, but you have to access it. You have to attune with it. And once that starts happening, that is called seva. That is the true seva of the Mahanubhav, the great teachers. Then nirmamo bhavati. Only once it is said, and so once we have dropped the attachment and in attachment there is me and mine, isn't it? That is attachment, mamatva is there in attachment. But when we drop that attachment, when we have dropped our obsession with the world of objects and beings, then suddenly there is emptiness in our heart. Now what do I do? Where do I go? Whom do I create relationship with? We have dropped the bad company, yes. We have dropped the attachment to the world, yes. Now mind is empty. Now what do you do? Yes, we came into the company of great masters, they are also telling the same thing, and you are trying to do that. At that time when we have withdrawn from the world, withdrawn from the people, withdrawn from all our comforts, and we are on the seat of meditation, at that time, nirmamo bhavati, at that time, the entire mind which has been withdrawn, if it is not directed towards the divine theme, it will come back with a vengeance. So never conclude your meditation just by japa. If you are doing your japa, if you are doing your puja, even if it is for half a second, 1 minute, sit down in silence. That is the conclusion. and remember the Lord in that silence. Otherwise, even that 1 minute of withdrawal from the world, you have harnessed great energies. They will go to the very next thought that comes into your mind after you get up from puja. And what is that thought? Usually it is some reaction, some disturbance.
What happened when you stay in silence?
Say that again.
What happened when you stay in silence?
Then you go deeper into silence. The more you deeper you, point is, mind does not want to remain in silence. Even in sleep. Sleep is silence. Do you remain sleeping all like 1 week? Can you sleep? I broke a record. 36 hours I think I slept. I was absolutely exhausted. But I got up in between, again go back to sleep. Got up in between, go back to sleep. But eventually I had to get up because the body started aching, lying on the bed. Empty mind, but in the end you wake up. To what? To the world. Isn't it? Eventually you wake up to the world only. So here we are invoking that silence by dropping the world consciously, and if we do not direct that mind towards the divine, it will go back to the world, and it will go back to the world with even greater force. If you build a dam and you collect the waters, if the dam breaks, there is flood. All the fields get destroyed, the villages get destroyed, isn't it? But if that dammed waters are channelized into canals and etc., then they can be used in a proper manner to have vegetation in even those far-flying areas where the river's water cannot be taken, isn't it? So same way, if the dam breaks, meaning you wake up ignorantly, all the energy goes back into the world and becomes a source of destruction of your peace and tranquility which you have been seeking. And because of that, to get that peace and tranquility alone, you controlled your mind, you controlled your senses, you dropped the bad company, you dropped your attachment to the world, and therefore 2 ways, and that is, we told before also, study the scriptures till you don't find a Mahanubhava, till you don't find a good realized master in your life. And once you get the realized master in your life, then do what he tells you to do. But till then, continue in your satsang, continue in your studies, continue to purify yourself, continue to be God-oriented, and it is by His grace alone that a great master will come into your life. You don't go and seek out, I think he is a great master. Ignorant mind can never come to know. And if you go searching for a great master, you will only come across who will take advantage of you. Because you are going with this teeny meeny ego, thinking that I am going to find a teacher for myself. And in that teeny meeny ego, what are the fears inside? That I don't want to be caught up by a master or by a sannyasi or by a monk or someone who takes advantage. I don't want to be caught up. I am a Vedanti. I don't want to be caught up with a master who is a yogi. So you already have a list of prerequisites. And with those prerequisites in your mind, you are going out in search of a master. And what you are afraid of, that alone you will come into your life. But when you leave it to the Lord, He knows what is best for you at that particular moment in order to grow further. Whether it be yoga, whether it be Vedanta, whether it be Karma Yoga, whether it be Kundalini, whether it be Japa, you don't have to stay with it. He will keep guiding you. Who? The Lord. And that Lord alone comes into our life as the teacher. And as the mind purifies, the more we give up attachment to the world, to that extent our mind keeps getting purified more and more and more, expands more and more and more, and eventually in that infinitely expansive mind there is no sense of otherness left. That pure consciousness alone reflects as the I thought and the that thought. But now all the thatness from your mind has gone. I also cannot remain. Because I is only dependent on that. If there is no that, how can I exist? And same way, when the student and the teacher, the devotee and the Lord, when the disciple and the guru, they are there, as the disciple is merging himself, surrendering himself to the guru, following his instructions, putting them into practice in his own life, a devotee is single-pointedly surrendering himself to the Lord. Slowly, 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 this idea that I am surrendering to the Lord also goes away. He reaches that point of at-one-ment with the goal, with the Guru, with the Lord. And in that at-one-ment means atonement or attunement, when he is absolutely in tune with him. At that time, I am the devotee, I am the disciple, this idea also drops. Then what remains in the mind is that infinite Lord alone. See? So then there is no person who has realized. There was no seeker, there was no Lord, there was no realization, nothing at that point. See? In this way, nirmamo bhavati, kastarati kastariti mayam, ya sangam tejati, yo mahanubhavam sevate, nirmamo bhavati. And in this manner, the one who crosses Maya, he who disentangles from the world of attachments. Once you disentangle from the world of attachments, automatically your further journey is laid out in front of you. What needs to be done automatically starts becoming evident. And such a person no longer gets caught up in anything in the world. Sutra 47, it says, Yo vivikta sthanam sevate, Yo loka bandhu moolayati. What happened? Yo loka bandhum unmoolayati. Yo nistray gunyo bhavati. Yo yoga kshemam tyajati. Yo vivikta sthanam sevate. Yo loka bandhum unmoolayati. Yo nistray gunyo bhavati. Yo yoga kshemam tyajati. The fourth way to cultivate devotion within our heart is he who keeps himself in a solitary place of quietude. Next one, fifth one, he who plucks of his bondage with the world by the roots. And sixth, he who goes beyond the influences of his gunas. And seventh, he who renounces all his anxieties for acquiring and maintaining. So the first one is that such a person who has dropped the world, unclushed from the world, disentangled from the world, then who has served the teacher by learning from him, and then there is no longer any sense of minus that I have to or I have to. Such a person then must go to a vivikta sthanam sevate, that such a person can go to a quiet solid place of solitude. Does not mean that you have to go to Himalayas. People can go to Himalayas and create a world there. People can go to ashram and they can create a world, a family there. I was somewhere and there they introduced me. This is my Guru brother and I am his Guru sister and he is the Guru Putra. And they went on and I was looking, what is this? Guru Bhai, Guru sister, Guru Putra. I have just given up one parent and now you are creating another Guru, another set of parents. We have to give up all attachments, no relationship. And after having, otherwise, even going to ashrams, people meet in some places and they say, oh, who are you? Oh, I was also initiated by such and such person. So you became my Guru Bhai. I said, you are my younger brother. Listen to the elder one. Move on. Huh? So, the quiet place of solitude is not in the Himalayas, is not in the ashram. It is on the seat of meditation. Wherever you are, that is the quiet place of solitude, where you have detached from the world and are ready to plunge into that silence, which is that conscious silence, Chit Ghana, the divine silence, which is not other than the Lord. That silence which is fully pervaded by the divine effulgence. And in this way, and in that silence, you concentrate upon the feet of the Lord. Eknath Maharaj, before Eknath Maharaj? Yeah, Eknath Maharaj. He was sitting in that temple and he was meditating away from the society. And there, remembering the feet of the Lord, he was not remembering the feet of the Lord, he was remembering his teacher. And no, he was remembering the Lord. And he asked, who is my Guru? I want to know. At that time, it was revealed to him that Jnaneshwar Maharaj is your Guru. And then he went. And then he asked Jnaneshwar, who should I follow now? Was it Namdev or? Namdev Maharaj. And in this way, in that silence of your heart, you bring the feet of the Lord, you bring the name of the Lord and start contemplating on it with concentration, with single pointedness of mind, with total focus, with no distractions, only the Lord and nobody else to distract you from that. And in this way, the person comes to recognize that in this world everything is one. Normally, if the divine theme is not brought about in that silence, there is loneliness, there is fear. But if we bring the Lord, then we get the courage to be alone anywhere, any place, any time. And that gives you fearlessness. That gives you this experience and belief and conviction that everything is the Lord and Lord alone, and I am a part of the Lord. That the consciousness that Lord and consciousness that me are one and the same. And in this way, such a person never goes and seeks company anymore. He is happy with himself or herself wherever he or she is. And in this way, yo vivikta sthanam sevate, yo loka bandhum unmulayati. He who plucks of his bondage with the world by the roots. How do you that means when you are taking the name of the Lord, when you are remembering the feet of the Lord, when you are in deep contemplation, even at that time, all the hidden impressions, the hidden vasanas, they are coming to the forefront. One by one they keep coming and wanting attention, demanding attention. And at that time, the only way to pluck them away so that they no longer become a source of trouble in the future is to disregard them and stay with the divine theme. That is the only way. This in the Upanishads it is told that if you do this, all the desires the vasanas, they get burned. That means the shape of the rope of the vasanas, the rope of the desire gets burned. The rope is still seen, but it is not able to tie you anymore. So these vasanas, if we disregard them, we become indifferent to them, they get burned. And now they will keep coming because we don't know how many are there inside. And on a daily basis, when we are living in the world, we collect new impressions involuntarily. But now they are no longer able to bind us, they are no longer able to enslave us, because our mind is totally available to that divine theme. And this way, at that time, all the relationships, all the acquisitions, yo yoga kshemam tejati, and at that time man gets involved in the world only for two things: to procure, to acquire what he doesn't have, that is yoga, and kshemam is to protect what he already has. For these two purposes is all our efforts being put in. This Cal who was here yesterday, so now their Rinpoche has passed away. So I said, now what is happening to the organization? He says the Tibetan monks came and they said that till the next time, which will be in about 20-25 years, till the next Rinpoche is found in 2-3 years time, and then he is trained and he is made capable of handling the position that he has to handle. Till then you have to maintain Maitripa. Maintain Maitripa. You don't have to expand it or anything, but you have to keep it to the best of your ability, so that when the next Rinpoche comes, after his training and everything, he has something to fall back upon. He may not need it, but it is there for him. So, protect. We have to maintain this place. So now I said, so do you work? No. So now my job is to maintain. Man is also doing the same thing. Protect himself from getting old. And what? To get more and more what he doesn't have. If I haven't traveled to certain countries, I want to travel. If I have not seen certain movies, I want to see those movies. If I have not gone to meet that, if I have not seen that Mahatma, I have to go and meet that Mahatma. So whatever I don't know. But if I come to know about something which I have not experienced or I have not seen or heard, I want to get that. I want to experience that. And so his effort goes towards that. And the second is kshema. Kshema is to protect what he already has. The house, the car, the body, the mind, the attachments, etc., etc. So both of these have to be dropped as you begin meditation on the Lord's feet on the seat of meditation in quiet solitude or silence. So, because if I have to gain something and I have to protect something, if these two viruses are there, it will not allow you to meditate. And therefore, if we think on the seat of meditation about our mother, the sun comes up. If we think about the sister, the brother comes up. If we think about the friends, the friend comes up. How can these personalities ever meditate on that Lord? They are already meditating on the mother, sister and friend, isn't it? So we have to be exclusively be available to that Lord. And in this way, throw away, unmulayati, by the root, pluck it out, throw away all attachment, throw away all your bondages, throw away your attraction towards all the objects of the world and the beings of the world. Throw away all the sense of procuring, throw away all the sense of protecting. Drop everything. And then alone there is a possibility of the final merger into the Lord. Otherwise, it's only an idea in the head. I am a great devotee and I am doing meditation. And this way, the 48th verse says,
One thing is we should get free from the effects of three gunas.
oh, yes, okay, yes. What was it? Nistraigunyo bhavati, yes. Understand that whatever we want to procure and whatever we want to protect is a product of these three gunas. The tamas in its manifest form, in its gross form, is expressing as this body. The rajas is expressing as the senses and the mind. And the sattva is expressing as the intellect. Now, how long we are going to maintain the body, maintain the senses, maintain the mind, maintain the intellect? How long are we going to keep practicing single pointed? Yes, we must. But how long? Understand the root cause of all this creation towards which you are attracted is this sattva, rajas, tamas. So observe in your mind towards what direction your thoughts are going, what quality of thoughts are coming towards you, are erupting within your mind. Are there tamasic, rajasic or sattvic? Sattvic means an untold pull towards the Lord within your mind. A sattvic thought cannot take you into the world. Yes, at most it will take you towards the great masters. But once you come to the seat of meditation, after having gained all that, now is the observation taking place. It cannot take you back into the world. It will take you towards the feet of the Lord. And recognizing that this whole creation is just a play of these three gunas, and my thoughts, my emotions, my attractions and distractions, the end about this whole world, which is itself a product of these three potentialities, sattva, rajas and tamas. And this, what is this sattva, rajas, tamas? That itself is a product of whom? Of Maya. These are just potentialities born out of ignorance. And I have to seek He who is the master of this Maya, and that is the Lord. And if I keep thinking I must eat sattvic food and not tamasic food. Dosa is tamasic, but man, I am from South India, I eat dosa idli 3 times a week, so I am tamasic. Then there is no hope for me to realize the Lord. Thought, mind will think. You have to go beyond all this. Without tamas, If the body was not there, would you be able to even sit and think about meditation and the Lord? Not possible. But in using this sattva, rajas, tamas, come to the feet of the Lord and know, have the conviction that only He has the capacity to take us beyond the clutches of these sattva, rajas, tamas. And once we have gone beyond, the sattva, rajas, tamas will continue to function through the mind. You will still be aware of them, but now you will be not enslaved by them. You will not be under their clutches. And in this way, in the Sutra 48, ya karma phalam tyajati karmani sanyasyati tato nirdvandvo bhavati. Ya karma phalam tyajati karmani sanyasyati tato nirdvandvo bhavati. Yet the 8th point is, he who relinquishes the fruit of actions, 9th, who renounces all egocentric actions, and thus 10th, becomes free from the play of the pair of opposites. Now, here the two words, tyajati, tyaga, Gita also talks about this word tyaga and sannyasa. What is tyaga? Tyaga means giving up. Giving up what? The first stage in our journey is to give up the fruit of our actions. Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana is the tyaga. And when a person lives a lifestyle wherein he is continuously performing the actions but not putting attention on what the result is going to be, because when our attention is on the results, then anxiety sets in. What if this result doesn't come about? What if I invest in the shares and the market goes down? Gone. What if I put a deposit in the house and buy the house after taking the loan and the market crashes? Then what do I do? If you keep thinking like this, you will never buy a house. If you keep thinking, if I take a job, no, I am not qualified to be a manager, but I have applied for a manager. What if they throw me out from the post? They will certainly throw you out then. You will never get that position. So the more we expect, the more we become anxious. The more we become anxious, the more our mental balance gets disturbed. Simple rule. So first, give up the anxiety for the fruits of the actions that you are performing. So if you are preparing the food, don't worry if it is tasty or not tasty, but do your best to make it good. If you are giving lecture, don't worry if people have understood or not understood, but you do your best without any expectation. Don't worry whether you will be able to sit for 2 hours or 3 hours in meditation, but you do your best and begin. Forget about the result. Let that express whatever. Some result will be there. Sometimes you may even surprise yourself. What happens as a result of this giving up of the fruits of our actions? The mind becomes purified. No new data is going in. As a result of this, an attitude is developed. 2 attitudes are developed. And those 2 attitudes are given here, and they are that karmani sanyasyanti tato nirdvandvo bhavati. Okay, not given here. But when you do that, then the sense of doership, because now the mind has become purified to a large extent. Mind is, contaminated only on account of 2 things: expectations of the future, memories of the past. Only 2 things. These are the contaminants. Now, half the contaminants you have taken care of by not expecting a result. So when mind reaches this so-called 50% of purification, automatically in that mind a new way of looking at things is inaugurated, and that is this mind becomes available to an option that I may not be the one who is performing the action. There is someone else who is performing the actions. That actions are happening, thoughts are happening, activity is happening, and I am just the observer of all this. Then who is performing all these actions? It must be the Lord. So initially it begins as that I must surrender the activity, the kriya to the Lord, and eventually leads to the conviction that all activity is only by the promptings of the divine. Second stage. Now you have given up your doership. You have given up your doership. You have given up your expectation of the result also. But because you have given up the expectation of the result, it's not that the action will not lead to any result. There will be results. And what are the results? How do we come to know what the result is? Through joys and sorrows that come into our life. So whatever the result is, it comes to touch us as joy and sorrow. So there it says, Tato nirdvandvo bhavati, remain undisturbed to the joys and sorrows. So again coming to the point, tyaga, tyajati, tyaga is to the expectation of the result. Sannyas, when you keep practicing this for a long period of time, automatically this giving up leads to renunciation. And what is this renunciation? Renunciation of egocentric desire activity. That I have to desire something, I have to do something. So you renounce even the desires. First you have renounced the expectations, now you renounce the desires. It leads to that as a result of purification. Therefore, no doership. And that is sannyas. And that leads to this tato nirdvandvo bhavati. Nirdvandvo bhavati, that whether when you have given up the doership completely, when you have given up the doership is the individual. When you have given up the individuality altogether, you have taken the position of being the witness, then for such a witness, the onslaught of the opposites has got no meaning. The eyes will see the opposites, but they do not influence the eyes. You see the opposites called right hand and left hand, right eye and left eye, head and toe. All these opposites are there within you, but are they creating a multiple personality within you called the right personality and the left personality? You are all one, isn't it? Same thing happens with regards to everything in this creation. Everything in your mind. There is no reaction, there is no, there is no acknowledgement. There is no acknowledgement of duality present. You are using the words right hand and left hand, but you do not feel within you that you are two, isn't it? You are one. Even though you are using the language in that manner. Similarly, this seeker, this devotee, when he comes to this point where he has renounced the expectation of the results and he has given up the expectation of the results and he has renounced desire-oriented activity, such a person comes to this state of nirdvandva. This is the natural state of any individual as he is moving towards the state of realization. He has to pass through that.
So the renunciation and the surrender, are they same thing?
No. Renunciation is the giving up of desire, ownership of desires. That they are my desires. You give up. So, why does activity happen in your life? What is the genesis? The vasana, which is in the subconscious, appears as desire in your intellect, gathers emotion in the mind, energy from the breath, and propels the body to act in whichever direction that desire can be fulfilled, isn't it? So, who is ego? Who says, it is my desire. I want to meditate. I want to realize. I want to eat. I am hungry. I am sleepy. I am a man. I have to do this. I have to do that. Everything that we do as an individual is desire-oriented activity itself, isn't it? So, to renounce this desire-oriented activity, the penultimate step is give up the expectations. You cannot straight away attack the desires and get separated from them. Until unless a certain critical purification within the mind is not brought about, the first step is renunciation, giving up of expectation of the results. Then alone, enough momentum is built up within the mind, the energy is available in order to migrate to this position from where you can say, where you can see that I am not the one who is desiring, desires are happening. And we say, I am desiring, isn't it? I want, I need, and become miserable on that account. So that's a very, very auspicious moment for us when we come to this realization that desires are erupting in the mind of their own accord. You have got nothing to do in it. This again in devotion, as I explained yesterday or day before yesterday, a japa jap sthiti, isn't it? When the mantra is going on automatically in your mind, you come to realize, Arey Baba, I am not chanting the mantra. Then who is? Renunciation. At that moment, that is called sannyas, if you have come to that point. Till then, I am chanting the name of the Lord. I have to do this, I have to cultivate, I have to do that. But once you realize, yes, you put efforts initially, but when you reach this point of watching, a mantra is coming into the mind and it is going away by itself. Even just a little bit bhajan we do, you get a glimpse of that, isn't it? After we stop and sit in silence, the mind is still going on with the chant. You are not chanting, then who is chanting? Catch. Catch. That's why bhajans are sung. That's why Nam Sankirtan is done. So that you can get into this witnessing. It's there and then. Even 5 minutes of chanting brings us to that point, isn't it? This quick result is possible only in Kali Yuga, not in any other yoga. So take advantage, because you are here. No, in Satyug it was so nice. Wait then another few million years. Keep taking birth after birth. So, यह कर्म फलम त्यजति कर्माणि संन्यस्यति ततो निर्द्वंद्वो भवति. This nirdvanda, where the duality stops, because there is no ego, there is no ownership of the desires, means you are witnessing, and that has come about because of non-expectation of the results. The mind goes through a great metamorphical change. Everything gets sucked out of that mind, because there is no one to own it. And one after the other, the mind is also wanting, initially it becomes like a roller coaster, full speed, like a machine gun fire, cut. At that time, if you remain in witness, fantastic. Because in that moment, within few minutes, within few seconds, a huge amount of your backlog is cleared, which could result in your future births, which could result as your future desires. Everything is just being thrown out. Maybe this one he will give me importance, maybe this one. The mind is throwing out everything that is there, but you are witnessing. You are continue to witness, continue to witness. That's what the mind does when you go to sleep also. In dream, whatever is unfinished, it wants to empty it, which is not important. It keeps the old important impressions. But all unnecessary impressions, mix salad and throw it out as a dream. Chalo bhai, khali ho gaya. Mind is also wanting to go back to its own source. Breath is also wanting to go back to its own source. Birth is also wanting to go back to its own source. Going back to its own source is called death. Start looking at it differently, the whole thing. Then you will enjoy the journey. Don't get stuck in only one point of view. And in this way, for such a person, heat, cold, hunger, thirst, honor, dishonor, praise, insult, man, woman, up, down, east, west, nothing, everything is the same. For this person, from whose mind all duality has vanished. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. We'll meet at 7. It's 6 o'clock now. What time is it? 5:45 or 6? Huh?
5 to 6.
10 to 6.
5 to 6.
So 7 o'clock, 1 hour.